as I've experienced groups like this, like a cross-cultural club at university I was at for 10 years, it was called an International Student Association, but it was widely known as a very broad umbrella. And when that group gathered, it was cross-cultural. And we, as a group, and the student leaders within that group got very good at understanding their own story in a way that included people. And then they could identify people who were feeling the same kind of exclusion they had experienced. And they could identify language and the way people talked and the way they talk about themselves. And so when they were meeting people, they would go, "You should come." And didn't need to feel like they needed to explain it. Just come, experience, be with us, experience it. And if you feel like this fits you, then join us. When that group gathered, there would sometimes be, and it was a small college, and there were probably, let's say, 45 students with foreign visas at a time. So officially international students, maybe got up to 45. But when that group gathered, sometimes there'd be 200. And that created this much richer, much more diverse culture and created this sense of belonging that transcended the group. All of a sudden, that group of 200 was at home at that university. This was their university. They weren't an imposition. This was theirs. Like, this was home. And for many, including myself, it was the first time I'd ever felt at home and a part of something and it was, yeah. And so it was a really rich, and I left that university with a group of 12 other cross-cultural people. And we started an organization. We called it Global Student Solutions because we didn't have a better term. I like cross-cultural community, cross-cultural club. I like that better. But for us, it was global. We wanted to think about how big and broad can we be? And we wanted to do whatever we could to help students in transition from secondary to university, and then in their university to create spaces, find spaces where they could create and be a part of community and belong and grow and have all those wonderful college life transformation experiences. So what it's looked like for me in terms of business is to look at that cross-cultural transition coaching window and work with individual families and students on walking through into university so that they could thrive at university, because that's kind of what the motivation is and what we would pay for. But in terms of speaking and in terms of a podcast like this, it's sharing these broader stories and creating a community, albeit virtual in the sense of a podcast, where we all belong and start to hear ourselves coming out in the stories. And I think certainly you do that better than anyone in being able to, you've perfected the art of articulating our experience. I use a lot of your language when I talk to people, because I think you do a really good job of finding that finding terms that help us connect to that common experience and common voice.
And I think what you're saying is right, because if we can find language, then we can use what we've experienced. If we don't have language, all we can do is feel and don't understand our feelings. That was what it was for me for so long.
Yeah.
And so I guess I do what I do because it's been important to me to find out there was language for my experience, but also then there were reasons. I think that's where the editor, when he challenged us, like, why do you feel this way? Or why do you have these characteristics? Really helpful, because we had to sit down and think, what is it? One of the first things was delayed adolescence, that we weren't, maybe quite on target with other kids. In other ways, we could be terribly mature. We can travel the whole world,
right?
But we don't know how you put money in the machine for the pop when you get back, because you don't know what the change is in your hand, things like that. But the more we understand the story, the more you normalize it and you say, oh, it's my story. It's not my identity even.